The rain began without warning on the forest moon of Varuna 7. One moment the sky was clear and glowing with the soft purple light of the twin suns, and the next moment thick gray clouds rolled in like a giant curtain being pulled across the sky. Daniel Hale felt the first drops hit his helmet as he pushed aside a branch covered in blue leaves. He had been walking for hours, moving through the soft, glowing forest floor, marking samples, taking pictures, and recording everything for the exploration team. Daniel was the kind of man who never hurried, never panicked, and never raised his voice. He moved with calm steps, even though he knew he was now far from the landing site. His scanner showed he was off the marked path, but the storm was growing too fast for him to return in time. The wind began to whistle through the tall, crystal-shaped trees, and distant thunder shook the air. He tapped his comm. "Team, I am heading east. Storm is strong here. I will look for shelter." Static crackled back. The storm was blocking most signals. Daniel sighed softly. It was not the first time nature caused trouble during missions, and he doubted it would be the last. He kept walking, leaning forward as the wind pushed against him. The blue plants on the ground bent and shook, releasing small glowing particles that floated like tiny fireflies. Daniel looked around, hoping to spot a cave or overhang where he could stay until the storm calmed. Then, through the sound of the rain, he heard something strange, a soft cry. At first he thought it might be an animal. Varuna 7 had many strange creatures after all, but the cry came again. Clearer this time, thin and trembling. It did not sound like any creature he had studied. It sounded like a young child. Daniel stopped walking. The storm continued to roar around him, but he listened carefully. There it was again, the same cry, weak and pained. Without hesitation, he turned toward the sound and began moving quickly through the thick brush. Branches scratched against his suit, and the mud pulled at his boots, but Daniel kept going, guided only by the faint cries. After several minutes, he spotted a shape lying near a fallen, glowing tree. He moved closer with slow, careful steps. It was not a human child. She was small, maybe around 10 years old by human standards, but her features were clearly alien. Her skin was a soft lavender tone, glowing faintly in the rain. Her hair was silver white and braided with tiny crystals. 2 thin markings ran down the side of her face, symbols he recognized from his studies. She was an Aelari. Daniel's breath caught for a moment. The Aelari were powerful, proud, distant, and rarely spoke to humans. Their worlds were closed, their culture strict, and their people deeply protective of their own. Humans were allowed near their systems only under heavy supervision, and yet, here she was, a young Aelari girl, alone in the storm and clearly injured. Her leg was trapped under a fallen branch. When she saw Daniel, her eyes widened with fear. She tried to move away, but the pain stopped her, and she cried out again. Daniel raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly, keeping his voice calm. The girl shook her head weakly, but she was too exhausted to resist. Daniel gently knelt beside her, checked the branch, and realized it was light enough to move. He lifted it slowly, careful not to frighten her. She winced as her leg was freed, and Daniel saw the swelling. Nothing broken, but badly strained. "I'm going to help you," he said again. The girl's breathing slowed. She watched him with big, cautious eyes. He could see she did not trust him yet, but she also had no strength left to fight or run. Daniel reached for his medical kit and began cleaning the wound. The rain made it hard, so he used his jacket to shield her leg. She hissed softly when the antiseptic touched her skin, but Daniel spoke gently, explaining everything he was doing. "It will sting a little, but it will help." Her voice was barely a whisper. Why help me?" Daniel answered honestly. "Because you're hurt. Anyone who sees that should help." The girl looked confused, as if the idea itself was strange. She stared at his face, trying to understand him. Daniel finished wrapping her leg and checked the swelling again. It would be painful for her to walk. "You need shelter," he said. "I will carry you, all right?" She hesitated. Her kind rarely trusted humans. But the storm was growing stronger, and she was trembling from cold. Finally, she nodded. Daniel lifted her carefully. She was light, her lavender skin glowing faintly against the dark storm. She clung to him weakly, too tired to keep herself steady. As he walked through the rain, he tried his calm again. It was still only static. He hoped the rest of his team was safe. The storm opened up even more, sending sheets of rain pouring down. Daniel shielded the girl with his body, turning his back to the wind whenever he could. He felt her shivering and tightened his arms around her to keep her warm. Minutes passed, then an hour. The storm showed no mercy, but Daniel kept moving. Suddenly, a sharp humming sound filled the air. Daniel froze. Bright blue lights appeared between the trees. The humming grew louder, closer. Daniel recognized the sound. It was Ilari patrol drones. The lights expanded, and several tall figures stepped out of the fog. They wore silver armor with glowing lines running across it, their faces mostly covered by crystal helmets. Long staffs pulsed with energy in their hands. Ilari guards. Daniel slowly lowered the girl to the ground, making sure she was safe, but the guards already had their weapons aimed at him. Their voices were sharp, commanding, speaking in their native language. The girl weakly raised her hand. "No. He helped me." The guards paused. Their eyes moved from the girl to Daniel, confusion flashing across their faces. One of the guards stepped forward, scanning the girl's bandaged leg. Then he looked directly at Daniel, as if trying to read his intentions. Daniel stayed still, hands open. She was hurt. I only helped her. The guards spoke quickly among themselves. Then one activated a communicator on his wrist. A distant voice responded. Another moment passed, heavy with tension. Then the guard spoke in broken human language. "The princess is found. The queen is coming." Daniel blinked. "Princess?" He looked at the girl in surprise. She avoided his eyes, embarrassed. Daniel had not known she was royalty. Suddenly, everything felt much more serious. The guards formed a protective circle around the girl but did not push Daniel away. They watched him with uncertain eyes, some suspicious, some curious, and some almost grateful. Time passed. The storm began to calm, and the forest glow slowly returned under the fading rain. The humming sound returned, louder and deeper. A large silver craft descended between the trees and touched down with elegant precision. When the ship opened, Daniel saw her. Tall, graceful, and wearing a long, flowing robe that shimmered with crystal patterns, the alien queen stepped forward. Her silver crown glowed with soft blue light, and her presence felt powerful, yet calm. Her eyes were sharp, watching everything at once. She took only a few steps before she froze completely. Her eyes locked onto Daniel. A human was holding her daughter's hand to keep her calm. The queen's expression shifted. Shock, confusion, calculation, and something else, something warmer, deeper. She hurried to her daughter and knelt beside her. The girl whispered softly, "He helped me, Mother." The queen's eyes softened. Slowly she turned to Daniel. He expected anger or suspicion. Instead, she only looked thoughtful, as if trying to understand him the same way her daughter had. Daniel bowed his head slightly. She was hurt. I couldn't leave her. The queen studied him for a long moment. The forest was silent. Even the guards waited for her reaction. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm but filled with meaning. "Your actions are not what we expected from your kind." Daniel nodded. "Maybe that can change." The Queen's expression softened further. She gave a small nod to her guards. Instead of detaining Daniel, they lowered their weapons. The Queen stood tall once more. "You will come with us," she said, "not as enemy, not as prisoner, but as one who saved my child." Daniel exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. The Aelari patrol formed a protective escort around them. The Queen walked beside her daughter, and Daniel followed close behind, unsure of what his future now held, but certain he had done the right thing. For the first time in generations, an Aelari queen had given trust to a human, and it all began with one simple act of kindness in the middle of a storm. The Aelari ship moved smoothly through the glowing forest as if it had memorized every tree and stone long ago. Daniel sat inside the craft, drenched from the storm and still trying to understand what had just happened. He sat quietly on a smooth crystal bench while two guards stood near him, not threatening, not hostile, just cautious. The young princess rested on a floating medical platform nearby. Her leg was now wrapped in a soft, glowing material made by Aelari healers, and she seemed more comfortable. She kept glancing at Daniel, her eyes full of curiosity, as if trying to understand why a human would help her when he knew her species rarely trusted humans. The Queen stood beside her daughter, speaking softly in the Aelari language. Her voice was gentle, and the princess held her hand tightly. For a brief moment, Daniel saw something universal, a mother relieved that her child was safe. It didn't matter that she was a powerful alien ruler. Her worry was the same as any parent. The Queen turned her head slightly and observed Daniel again. Her eyes were calm but sharp, as if she could read every thought in his mind. Daniel did not look away. He had nothing to hide. When the ship finally rose above the treetops, the view changed completely. The storm clouds were breaking apart, and the twin suns cast soft light over the massive crystal mountains. As the ship moved forward, Daniel saw something that took his breath away. The Aelari capital. It was a city that looked like it had grown from the mountains themselves. Tall towers made of glowing crystal rose like frozen waterfalls. Bridges floated between buildings, glowing with gentle blue light. Airships drifted peacefully along set paths, humming like distant songs. Every part of the city looked alive, breathing, shining with energy. He felt small in front of its beauty. The ship landed on a large circular platform near the tallest tower. A group of Aelari officials and guards waited there. Their robes shimmered with patterns that marked high rank. When they saw the Queen step out carrying her daughter's hand, they bowed deeply. But when they noticed Daniel behind her, whispers spread instantly. A human in their sacred city. Some were shocked. Others narrowed their eyes with distrust. A few seemed curious. The Queen raised her hand, and silence fell over the platform. "This human aided my daughter," she said in her strong but calm voice. "He is to be treated with respect." The officials exchanged stunned glances. The Queen rarely gave such orders concerning outsiders. Daniel stood still, feeling dozens of eyes on him. He tried not to look nervous. The princess gave him a small smile as if trying to reassure him that he was safe here. The Queen walked toward the inner hall, and Daniel followed with the guards beside him. The hall was enormous, filled with glowing pillars and soft lights that changed color as they walked by. The air smelled like fresh leaves and something sweet, like the scent after a gentle rain. She led them to a private chamber with high crystal windows. A group of royal healers entered to check the princess's leg. Daniel watched quietly as they used healing tools unfamiliar to humans, thin crystals emitting soft waves of light that soothed swelling instantly. The Queen finally turned to him. "You have not given your name." Daniel nodded. "I'm Daniel Hale, from the human exploration team stationed at Landing Site 3. She studied him for a moment. "You protected my daughter, Daniel Hale. That is an action my people will not forget easily." "It was the right thing to do," he replied simply. The queen seemed to appreciate that answer. She stepped closer. "Still, you must understand something. Aelari do not trust humans. Many believe humans rush, consume, and bring chaos with them. Some think your kind only comes to take." Daniel did not argue. He had heard such accusations many times. Some were unfair, some were understandable. "And yet," the queen continued, "I found my daughter in the arms of a human shielding her from the storm." Daniel kept his voice gentle. "She was alone. She was scared. I couldn't leave her." The queen nodded slowly, almost gratefully. "Your kindness challenges our beliefs." A door opened behind them. Senior Aelari council members entered. They were older, their robes heavy with symbols of authority. Their expressions were serious. One of them spoke in firm English. "Your Majesty, we must discuss this. A human inside our capital is dangerous. Their presence is not permitted." Another council member added, "Humans wander where they should not. We cannot trust his intentions." Daniel said nothing. The queen raised her hand, and they immediately fell silent. "This human saved my daughter's life," she said. "Before judgment, show respect." The council members exchanged unsettled looks. They were not used to being contradicted, even gently. "We will discuss this further," the queen said. "But understand this, he stays as an honored guest until truth is known." She turned to Daniel. "You will be given a place to rest, food, and protection. You are safe here." Daniel bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty." The queen's eyes softened. "You have earned more than thanks." 2 guards escorted him through long, glowing halls. Daniel took in everything: the gentle, floating lights, the walls carved with ancient stories, the warm hum of the crystals beneath his feet. It all felt magical, peaceful, yet also full of tension because of his presence. They brought him to a small guest chamber. The bed was made of soft, glowing material that adjusted to his weight. A small window overlooked the entire city. He sat on the bed and took a deep breath. Everything was happening so fast. Meanwhile, the queen stayed with her daughter in the healing chamber. The princess spoke softly. "Mother, he saved me twice, from pain and fear." "Yes," the queen whispered, "and because of that, our world may change." While Daniel rested, news spread across the city like wildfire. Citizens spoke in markets, in homes, and across floating bridges. Some were afraid. Some were curious. Others asked questions. Why would a human save a princess? Is he dangerous? Maybe humans are not like we thought. Not all felt hopeful. In a dim room far from the palace, a group of Aelari warriors gathered. Their armor was darker, their expressions stern. They had long opposed any contact with humans. They called themselves the Shadow Guard. One of them slammed a hand on the table. "The queen brings danger into our home, a human, inside our capital." "This is insult, this is humiliation," another growled softly. "Humans weaken trust. Humans break balance. We cannot allow him to stay." They began planning. Their voices low, their expressions hardened. They believed they were protecting their people, but their path would lead to conflict. Back at the palace, Daniel could not sleep. The events replayed in his mind: the storm, the injured girl, the queen's eyes full of shock. He wondered what the council was deciding now. He wondered if he would ever return to his team. There was a soft knock at the door. Daniel stood up. "Come in." The door opened slowly, and the princess peeked inside. Her leg was still wrapped, but she walked carefully. "May I come?" she asked. Daniel nodded gently. "Of course." She stepped inside, her silver hair glowing softly. She studied him closely, her eyes big and full of wonder. You're different from what they say, she whispered. What do they say? Daniel asked. That humans are loud, rough, careless, that humans only think of themselves. She paused. But you helped me. You saved me from the storm. Why? He smiled softly. Because you needed help. And I was there. The princess touched her bandage. My mother trusts very few outsiders. But she trusts you now. Daniel shook his head lightly. She doesn't trust me. Not yet. But she's willing to try. That means more than trust. The girl nodded, trying to understand. Will you stay here? Daniel paused. I don't know. Maybe only for a short time. Maybe longer. It depends on your people. The princess sighed softly. I hope you stay. I want to show you the gardens, and the learning halls, and the floating river. You saved me. I want you to see my world. Daniel smiled warmly. I would like that. But outside the palace walls, the Shadow Guard prepared their own plans. They believed humans were a danger. They believed Daniel's presence would bring chaos. And they were ready to act soon. Daniel did not know it yet, but his kindness had changed the queen's heart, and at the same time, it had awakened fear in others. As night fell over the glowing crystal city, two truths formed at the same time. A human was being welcomed for the first time, and a silent threat began moving in the shadows. Daniel woke the next morning to the gentle glow of the Aelari sunrise. Their sun was softer than Earth's, spreading a calm blue-golden light across the city. The crystal towers outside his window reflected it in thousands of tiny sparkles, making the whole capital look like it was waking up slowly from sleep. For a moment, he just stood by the window, trying to understand the strange feeling inside him. He was in an alien city that humans had never walked freely in. He had spoken to a queen, saved a princess, and now he was living in a room designed for royal guests. It felt unreal, yet peaceful. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. When Daniel opened the door, the princess stood there, leaning slightly on her healing brace. Her legs seemed stronger today, and the glow around the brace was softer. Good morning, Daniel, she said with a shy smile. Her voice was light, almost musical. Good morning, he replied warmly. You're walking better today. The healers say I will be normal in a few days, she said proudly. Mother wants you to join us for morning meal. Daniel nodded, surprised. The queen invited me? Yes, the princess said. She says it is right to thank you again. And she wants the council to see you with their own eyes. Daniel followed her through the long corridors. Aelari architecture was smooth and winding, without sharp corners. Light crystals floated above them, shifting colors with the movement of air. Other Aelari passed them, some staring in surprise, some whispering quietly. A few even bowed timidly to Daniel, though most quickly looked away afterward as if unsure how to behave around a human. They entered the large dining hall where the queen was already seated at a long crystal table. She looked calm, elegant, and rested. Her silver crown glowed softly as she raised her eyes to Daniel. You are welcome here, she said gently. Sit beside me. Daniel obeyed. The food served was light and colorful, with soft, glowing fruits and gentle-tasting crystal bread. Daniel ate carefully, unsure of which dish was safe for humans, but the queen guided him politely. He noticed the council members sitting on the far end of the table. Their faces were tight, their eyes hard. They did not hide their suspicion. But the princess sat proudly between Daniel and her mother, as if silently telling everyone that her protector belonged at her side. After the meal, the queen rose. Daniel Hale, she said, walk with me. He followed her into a wide balcony overlooking the entire capital. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of crystal flowers from the royal gardens below. The queen stood tall, her eyes observing the vast city. My people are speaking about you, she said softly. Some are afraid. Some feel hope for the first time. Others remain angry. Daniel looked at the towers. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You did not, the queen said. Trouble was already here. You simply brought truth into the light. He waited quietly. The truth, the queen continued, is that we have been wrong about humans. You showed us that your kind can protect without reward. You saved my daughter when no one else was there. That action brings honor. Daniel felt a warm sense of respect for the queen's honesty, but the queen's voice darkened slightly. Yet not everyone desires peace. There are those who fear change. They believe humans will destroy our order. Daniel had a soft feeling of unease. Will they try to act against me? The queen did not answer directly. Her eyes drifted toward the distant towers, almost as if she sensed something. Be careful, she finally said. The princess joined them soon after, asking Daniel excited questions about Earth, what the oceans looked like, what the stars looked like through human eyes, whether Earth animals could talk. Daniel answered gently, enjoying her bright curiosity. Later that day, the queen arranged for Daniel to tour the city with a trained Ayalari guide named Lithera. She was tall, calm, and silent at first. They walked through floating bridges, healing centers, and learning halls where young Ayalari students practiced shaping crystal structures with soft energy fields. The children stared in awe at Daniel, whispering excitedly behind their hands. Lithera watched him closely, evaluating his reactions. You are more gentle than I expected, she finally said in her soft voice. Humans are not all the same, Daniel replied. So I have learned, she said, her eyes softening. They entered the Star Garden, a place filled with tall, glowing plants that shifted colors with the movement of the air. It was peaceful, beautiful, and full of small, floating creatures that looked like living lights. Daniel watched them move around him in soft patterns. For a moment, everything felt calm. But far above the garden, hidden behind crystal pillars, a pair of sharp eyes watched Daniel carefully. It was a member of the Shadow Guard. He reported quietly into a small crystal device. He walks freely. The queen protects him. We must act soon. Daniel felt none of this. He walked peacefully beside Lithera, listening to her explain Ayalari traditions. She spoke about balance, respect for nature, and the ancient stories of the first crystal cities. Daniel listened with genuine interest, and she seemed surprised at how attentive he was. You are not here to take, Lithera said quietly. You are here to learn. Daniel smiled softly. I only want to help if I can. You already did, Lithera said gently. More than you know. Later, they returned to the palace. The queen was in the council chamber discussing something with raised voices. Daniel and Lithera waited outside. He heard fragments of the argument. A human should not stay here. He has earned respect. He is a danger to our traditions. He saved the princess. The voices grew louder, full of disagreement. Lithera turned to Daniel. The council is divided. They do not know whether to accept you or fear you. Daniel exhaled slowly. I don't want to be a burden. You are not, she said firmly. Inside the chamber, one council member slammed his hand on the table. We cannot allow humans to walk in our sacred places. The queen's voice was calm but strong. This human saved my daughter's life. I will not cast him out because of old fear. Another elder argued, Respectfully, Your Majesty, humans bring change. Change leads to danger. The queen's eyes sharpened. Sometimes change is needed. The council fell silent. Her authority was clear. Daniel was escorted back to his guest chamber for the evening. He tried to rest, but something felt wrong, like the air carried a quiet warning. He looked out the window and saw distant movement among the shadows of a rooftop. He blinked and looked again. The shape was gone. Maybe he was imagining it, but the shadow guard was not imaginary. That night, in a hidden chamber beneath the city, they gathered around a glowing table. "Tomorrow," their leader said, "we act." "How?" another whispered. "We will test him. If he shows danger, the queen will see it. If he is harmless, we will remove him quietly." A younger guard hesitated. "But he protected the princess." "We protect the Ilari future," the leader said coldly. "Humans do not belong here." In the palace, the princess could not sleep. She walked quietly to Daniel's chamber and knocked softly. When he opened the door, she looked worried. "I feel something wrong," she whispered. Daniel crouched to meet her eyes. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," she said, touching her chest lightly. "I feel danger." Daniel realized she was sensitive to energy patterns, something Ilari children were known for. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're safe, and I'm safe. The queen won't let anything happen." But even as he said it, he felt a strange heaviness in the air, like unseen eyes watching them. The princess stayed with him until she calmed down. Daniel talked to her about earth trees and rivers, distracting her until she felt sleepy again. He took her back to her room carefully, hoping his presence made her feel safe. The queen saw them in the hallway and smiled gently. "Thank you, Daniel." But her smile faded when she saw the worry in her daughter's eyes. When Daniel returned to his room, he sensed something had shifted. The peacefulness of the city felt thinner now, as if something dark was moving underneath it. The night passed quietly, but it was the kind of quiet that happened before a storm. Daniel did not yet know it, but the true test was coming. His kindness had changed many hearts, but it had also awakened old fears, and those fears were ready to strike. The alien queen stood in complete silence after she heard her daughter's voice. For a long moment she could not say anything. She only looked at her daughter, who was standing on her own feet for the first time since the attack. The young princess still had weak steps, but she was smiling, and her eyes were bright again. It was a sight the queen had not expected to see so soon. Her attention then slowly moved to the human standing beside her daughter, and she felt an emotion she had not felt in many years: genuine gratitude. The human stepped aside a little, not wanting to look disrespectful. He lowered his head slightly, not fully bowing, but trying to show he came with no bad intentions. He did not know the customs of the queen's people, but he used the universal language of politeness. The queen noticed this small gesture, and it softened her heart even more. She had seen many humans before, but none like him. Most humans she encountered were soldiers, traders, or diplomats, but this one was simply brave and kind for no advantage of his own. Her daughter reached out and held the human's arm for support. It shocked the queen again. Her daughter had always been shy toward strangers. She never touched outsiders, not even her own guards, but now she held the human like someone she trusted completely. The queen's eyes softened further, and a small breath escaped her lips. She finally spoke after a long silence, her voice calmer than anyone expected. "You saved her," she said. The human nodded slowly. "I did what anyone should do," he said in simple words. "I couldn't leave her alone." The queen studied him carefully. She had lived long enough to know that not everyone would risk their life for someone from another species. Many fought only for their own people. Even more would have turned away when danger came. But this human had protected her daughter, carried her, and defended her from the enemy creatures that lurked in the forest. No reward, no command, no duty, only heart. She stepped closer, her long cloak dragging softly behind her across the ground. Her guards watched every movement, ready to act if needed, but the queen lifted one hand to stop them. She wanted to approach the human herself. When she stood in front of him, she raised her hand slowly and placed it on her daughter's head. It was a gentle gesture, full of love and relief. Then she looked at the human again. "You have done more for my people than many of my own warriors," she said. He did not know what to say to that. He was never good with praise. Instead, he simply said, "I'm glad she's safe." The queen nodded and then looked around at her guards. She ordered them to lower their weapons. They obeyed instantly, and the heavy tension disappeared from the clearing. The forest felt peaceful again, like the danger from earlier had never existed. Birds began to chirp in the distance, and the wind carried a soft smell of flowers. It was almost strange how quickly calm returned after chaos. The queen guided her daughter toward their transport vehicle, a large hovering craft that shone like polished metal. But the princess stopped halfway and turned to the human again. She held out her hand, inviting him to walk with her. The queen saw this but said nothing. The human hesitated, unsure if he was allowed to step closer to the queen. But when he saw the princess's hopeful eyes, he accepted her hand gently. Together, they walked toward the craft. The queen entered first, followed by her daughter. At the door, the human paused. He believed this was the end. He thought the queen would say goodbye, and he would return to his own people. He had done his part. But the queen surprised him again. "Come with us," she said. "You are our guest." He blinked. "Me? I don't want to intrude." "You saved a princess," she said firmly. "You will not walk home alone." He could not argue with that. He stepped inside. The interior of the craft was filled with lights, smooth silver walls, and floating panels showing maps and symbols he did not understand. He watched everything with curiosity. The princess smiled at his reactions. She found it charming how he looked at her world with both wonder and calmness. As the craft moved through the sky, the human saw the great city of the queen's people in the distance. Tall towers stood like crystals rising from the ground. Bridges connected structures that floated in the air. It was far beyond anything humans had built. The view made him silent for several moments. The queen watched him secretly. She saw no fear in his eyes, only amazement. Most outsiders felt intimidated when entering her territory. But the human simply admired everything. She liked that. It made him seem honest and open-hearted. When they landed, hundreds of citizens gathered to welcome the queen and the princess. But when they saw the human stepping out beside the princess, they all murmured in confusion. The queen raised her hand to silence them. She gave a sharp command, and the crowd instantly quieted. "This human saved my daughter," she said loudly. "Treat him with honor." The crowd bowed their heads. The human felt awkward, not knowing what to do. But the princess giggled softly beside him. She told him they bowed to show respect, so he simply nodded back. It made some people smile because they found his humble gesture pleasant. The queen led them into the palace. Inside, many healers came to examine the princess. They checked her injuries and confirmed she was recovering fast. The human watched from a corner. He did not want to interrupt them. When the healers finished and left, the princess walked straight to him again. "Will you stay for a while?" she asked. Her voice was small but sincere. He looked at the queen. She answered before he could speak. "He is free to stay as long as he wishes." Over the next days, the palace became a different place. Many servants whispered about the human, trying to understand why the princess was so attached to him. But the truth was simple. She trusted him because he had protected her when she was helpless. That kind of trust was difficult to create, and once formed, it did not break easily. The queen also spent time observing him. She asked him questions about humans, about Earth, about how he had learned to remain calm in dangerous situations. She found him unexpectedly wise. He was not a soldier, not a leader, not a hero in the classical sense, but his strength was in his heart, not in weapons or power. One evening, the queen invited him to a private dinner with her and the princess. It was a simple meal, but meaningful. The princess sat close to him, telling stories about her childhood and how she used to explore the forest. The queen listened silently, noticing how her daughter's face glowed with happiness. At one moment, when the princess left the room to bring a drawing she wanted to show him, the queen spoke quietly. "You changed something," she said. He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "My daughter feared humans," she said honestly. "She thought they were too different. But now she trusts one more than she trusts many of her own kind. You showed her that kindness exists beyond species." He did not know what to say. He was not used to important people thanking him, so he simply nodded. "She is smiling again," the queen continued. "You brought that smile back." He felt a warm emotion in his chest. He had not done anything for reward, but hearing this made everything worth it. The princess returned with her drawing, and the moment grew light again. She showed him a picture she had made. In the drawing, she stood beside him in the forest, both looking up at the stars. He smiled at the picture, and she looked proud that he liked it. As the days passed, he learned more about their culture, and they learned more about humans. The queen often said that the bond formed between her daughter and the human was a sign of hope for future peace between their species. Some leaders argued against it, but the queen stood firm. She said anyone who saved a child deserved respect. Eventually, the day came when the human had to decide whether to return home or stay longer. The queen gave him freedom to choose. The princess waited quietly, hoping he would stay but respecting his decision. He stood on the balcony overlooking the glowing city. The queen and princess waited behind him. He thought about everything he had seen, every moment he had spent here, and how much the princess trusted him. When he finally turned around, the princess held her breath. "I will stay a little longer," he said. Her face lit up like a rising sun. She hugged him tightly, surprising even herself. The queen smiled gently at the sight. And so the human who saved the princess remained among them. He became a bridge between two worlds, a living reminder that kindness had the power to change destinies. The queen, once shocked to see a human holding her injured daughter, now could not imagine a world without that human in her palace. Her daughter, once afraid and wounded, now walked with strength and joy. In a universe full of conflict, something rare and precious had formed: trust. And it all began with a single moment in a dangerous forest, where a human chose to protect instead of walk away.